How can attorneys help clients avoid conflict and a bad divorce? Everyone considering or facing divorce needs serious help. How do we know? Because too many people make bad divorce decisions every day, hurting their families. How can attorneys help clients better? First, remember many people who rush into divorce regret it, usually when it's too late to stop it. So help your potential client see if there's a way to save the marriage. Encourage counseling, even if they say the marriage can't be saved. Counselors or therapists can help stressed people deal with the stress and see how to act peacefully. Too many couples engage in unnecessary hostile conflict, hurting their families. If you're an experienced family lawyer, you've seen that almost every person who engages in extremely hostile conflict has a lawyer, and that person ultimately regrets the conflict, but the lawyer usually can't see the problem. When I see hostile conflict and I know the lawyer, I call later and ask the lawyer why. The lawyer usually says the client wanted to do it. I ask the lawyer, what were they thinking? The lawyer usually says, I don't know. I ask the lawyer, can't they see their most likely consequences? The lawyer usually says, I don't know. I ask if the lawyer told the client all the choices and consequences before they acted. Too many lawyers say no. Those lawyers who say yes, I ask if their client confirmed they heard and understood all choices and consequences. Too many lawyers say no. I tell the lawyers who say no, or I don't know, a key part of your job is to be a counselor at law. To counsel means to advise, guide, direct, and most importantly, to warn. Too many lawyers aren't adequately advising their clients, so the clients can have reasonable, not great, expectations. Please see what you can do to educate those attorneys in your community who need that lesson. What else can you do to help your client avoid conflict and a bad divorce? Realize today your client or potential client can go online and get dozens, probably even hundreds, of attorneys and others to answer their questions. What's the problem with that for you? Too many of the attorneys and others answering questions online A, aren't qualified or competent, B, usually don't get enough facts to give good advice to guide the client to the right divorce decision, and C, too often just tell the potential client what they want to hear. If you're an experienced, ethical family lawyer, you know that's not the best thing for the client. What can you do to make sure your client or potential client doesn't rely on bad advice or incomplete advice? And how can you stand out in a crowd that grows bigger every day? Make sure you've recommended to your clients and potential clients a comprehensive divorce decision-making guide. Why should you? If you don't, your potential client is more likely to find and hire or follow someone else. If you don't, your actual client will likely forget the good advice, rely on bad advice instead, and blame the attorney who represented the client. That's you. If you do, you can help yourself avoid claims that you failed to give your client a comprehensive picture of the divorce process, issues, choices, and effects. And if you do, you distinguish yourself from the huge numbers of attorneys who fail to recommend a comprehensive divorce decision guide. And standing out in the crowd has never been more critical for you and for clients. If you recommend the right guide, you can use the guide to show the client your advice is right, and then the guide, not you, becomes the bearer of any bad news. Remember that if the comprehensive guide you recommend is too long or too detailed, running into hundreds of pages of text, your client will get lost, frustrated, and angry. And you know you won't be happy if you make your client angrier. Clients under stress need and want guides that let them see what they need to know in an instant, or as close to an instant as possible. The average attention span these days is measured not in minutes, but in seconds. Diagrams or visual presentations can help people see the right divorce decisions. Why is that true? 1. 80% of us or more see far better than we hear. When we see a visual presentation, our brain gets a lasting impression. Most of us under severe stress hear 10 to 20%. the part we want to hear. 2, clients remember even less than they hear, and most of that memory is wrong. All experienced family lawyers have heard clients complain, after the fact, that they wish they had known something the lawyer believed she or he told the client. The client did not hear, understand, or remember, or all three. That's what stress does. Diagrams have always worked to show my clients how to work through almost every issue or problem, often peacefully, always without hostile conflict. I'm not saying you have to use my guide. If you find a better guide you believe your potential clients or actual clients will understand, use it. I'm just saying that if you recommend a good guide, it's a win-win. Tell your clients to seek peaceful resolutions whenever possible to resolve conflict, because families usually have to deal with each other in the future, and a voluntary agreement is more likely to be obeyed and give everyone what they need. If children are involved, the children look to the parents as role models. Consider your own children. What do you want your children to learn? Apply that lesson to your practice with your clients. Please see what you can do to help your clients facing divorce see the big picture so they can see how to decide right. Clients will remember fondly attorneys who looked out for the client's best interest. Those clients will recommend those attorneys to their family, friends, and associates. Please, please, let's be careful and thoughtful out there. You're dealing with real people's real personal lives. Thank you.